Get my dolly, put the heel of my hand against the saddle, and let's ask for a walk. So anytime I'm working a horse, I almost always have more than one objective that I'm working on that day. Usually working on a couple different things at one time. Doing that with him today. This is the horse that had the surgery on his back right stifle, little minor procedure. And I'll put a link up here or a link somewhere to the video where I talk more about that if you'd like to see that. And I have an exercise routine that we need to do as part of his recovery from that. So I'm working that. We're working on having him where we can show him in ranch trail. So we're working on throwing a rope, working on dragging a log. I'll be doing some of that today. And I'm also trying out this saddle right here for him. His owner didn't have a good saddle that fit him. He had a saddle that fit, but it wasn't really good for the events that he does. So we're trying this saddle out. It seemed to fit him nice when I put it on him and run my hands under it and checked it. So what I want to do today is ride in it today, check the sweat marks, see how he works, see if he works the same, close to the same in this saddle as he does in the other saddle that I've been working him in. So those are all our objectives that we're working for today, and we will see how each one of them progresses. So the first thing I want to do, I walked him around a little bit. Let's get a little bit more forward walk. Part of the thing with his stifle is he needs to reach out a little bit more. Needs a little bit more forward walk, needs a little bit more forward trot, needs to trot a good bit. Vet said trotting up and down hills was good, but I am on the Mississippi coast. We don't have anything like hills. Closest thing we have to hills is that pile of dirt right there. It is flat here. So we don't have hills, so we're going to do some trotting, some extended trotting, and we're going to work on pulling that log. So what I am looking for in this trot is I want to ride him so that he reaches, and I'm feeling how he moves. He might not move quite symmetrically. If he don't, that's okay. That's part of the process. He had a procedure to tighten one of the tendons in his stifle. So we want to make sure we keep him exercised, keep that stifle moving so that it heals back to the tightness that it needs to be. One of the other objectives that I'm working on with him is his neck rein. When he came, he really didn't have much neck rein at all. I was looking at the horse that just went in the barn. When he came, he didn't have much neck rein at all. So I want to make that neck rein better. As far as showing, he can still be shown. This would be his last year shown two-handed and a snaffle bit. So it's ready for him to be progressing into one-handed in the bit. And he's actually handling that pretty good. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but he has his shoulder kind of fall into the inside, heads a little bit to the outside. Get his nose to the right, get the shoulder in, there we go. So that's one thing you have to kind of be aware of when you're swapping a horse from two-handed to one-handed, or even just a one-handed horse or horses in general. You want to be aware of when their shoulders fall in and they counterbend to the outside. When that happens, that shoulder is going to be weaker, it's going to be down, and they're not going to be extending as good with the back leg on the same side. And this happens to be the back leg that he really needs to exercise with. So being aware of what that right shoulder is doing is really important for his recovery. He's kind of fussing with the bit a little bit because the bit is helping to put his body where it needs to be to carry himself correctly. Don't really care that he wants to fuss with the bit. When he carries his body like he needs to, he won't fuss with the bit. Fussing with the bit is an indication that something needs work. Let him walk just a little bit. This is turning into a really nice horse. He is a BLM Mustang. The owner recently did a DNA test on him, and I think I've only seen one other DNA test on a Mustang, and his came back pretty interesting. I'll put a link to the breed that it said that he primarily was. I'd never heard of that breed before. It's from Portugal, and it's pretty interesting. I'd never heard of the breed, but when you look at the picture in Wikipedia, it looks a lot like him other than color. So now let him walk it a little bit. Now let's trot again. We'll trot one more time, asking him to carry his body correctly. Getting better. He is kind of naturally a little bit on the lazy side to begin with. He's what I would call more of a stoppy horse than a goey horse. So how he carries his body, he's going to be a little bit lazy because of that. Good boy. Good boy. So now, let's go pick up this rope, see how he handles dragging this log. We've practiced this a good bit, and he's dragging pretty decent. The problem that I run into is when I initially pick up the rope, he spooks away from the rope. Stand here for a minute. He's worried about it a little bit. See how he kind of side passed out? He knows it's there. He knows what it is. He's trying to avoid it because he's a little worried about it. So we've got to get his confidence better. I'm not going to fuss at him for not standing exactly like I want him to stand here. I want him to want to be here. So even though we're not standing parallel to the log like what I would like, he is wanting to stand here where when we first walked up, he wanted to walk away. This is progress. I'm going to reward the progress. Now let's walk away and let's walk back and see what we get. When we're showing, most of the time, they'll have the rope set on a post and you walk up, pick the rope up, drag the log in whatever pattern they say. Let's stop right here. Felt like he was wanting to veer off that way, so let's just stop here and get him comfortable. So normally when you're showing, when you have to drag a log, they have the rope sitting on a post. Right here, I just throw it over the wall. I have to drag it to me. It makes a little noise. He's got to get used to that. When I go to pick it up off that post, I need to make sure he's okay with it. It's going to make a little noise there. I'll need to get my loops right and get my dally right. He wants to look at it, I'm going to let him look at it. Let's go up another step. Good boy. Pay attention. Good boy. When I get the rope and actually build my loops and get my dowel and we go to drag, he's been pretty good. See him flinch. This is the part that he's giving me trouble with. But the other side of that is he is a Mustang, and my experience with Mustangs is they generally have pretty strong flight instincts. So I think when this first starts to move and make a little noise, it's kind of kicking in that natural flight instinct he has. I'm not going to fuss at him for that. He's here. He has survived because his parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents had that survival instinct. I can't fuss at him for it. I'm not going to scold him for something that's bred into him for generations. But I do want to take the time to show him that It's not gonna, this isn't gonna hurt. Just like I've said in so many other things, I do want to drag the log. That is my ultimate goal, but that's not my ultimate goal for today, which we will probably get there. My ultimate goal for today is for him to be more comfortable about this rope. So now he walked away. I didn't ask him to walk away. I'm going to put a little bit of spur on him out here, and I'm going to bring him back where we were and ask him to relax again. Take the spur off. He's a little bit worried. Whoa. Again, not exactly where I want to be, but that's okay. Now he's totally distracted by that pile of poop on the ground. Let's walk around and do it again. He's right on the edge where he doesn't really want to do it, but is not exactly really scared of it either. That's a phase that most all horses go through when you're teaching an obstacle like this. He knows that it ain't gonna hurt him. He's done it enough to know that. Just don't quite like it enough to be okay with it. Now remember I said one of the things we were working on was neck rein. His neck rein is okay. Not great, but it's okay. Let's walk a few circles over this rope. One of the things he needs to be okay with is that rope around his feet. I don't ever want to get that rope caught up between his feet when we're showing. It's asking for a wreck. But on the other hand, I want him to be okay with that rope around his feet. Not going to put him in that situation intentionally. However, I want to prepare him as best as I can if he ever does end up in that situation. Not really going to hide this rope from him. I want him to be okay with it, wherever it is and whatever it's doing. Okay, so let's ask him to stop right here. Whoa. Good boy. Let's kind of build a loop. You can't build a loop like you normally would because you can't flip the end because it's attached to the log. We're going to get a little bit of a loop built. And we're going to ask him to drag this log. Get my dowel, put the heel of my hand against the saddle, and let's ask for a walk. I'm always going to keep fingers between the reins and the lariat so that I can let the lariat go without letting the reins go. I like that he looked at it there. He looked at it, he understood it, and he didn't spook away from it. I'll make a couple loops to the right. I can feel him just starting to kind of get the idea of needing to lean into the weight. Not quite there yet, but we're getting there. He's done this just enough that he's starting to figure that part out. Now I have done this several times on him. If your horse has not drug a log before, you don't want to start with this step. There's some things that I did to prepare him for this. And if I can find that video, I'll put a link to it. Ask for a little steering. Again, we're working on a neck rein. He's going to show this. You typically have to drag it in like a figure 8, where you drag it to the right and you drag to the left with it on his, up against his hip. Now I have this log a little bit long. When I go to the left, it's going to be a little high on his hip. So I'm not really going to be able to make a full left circle at this length. I'll have to shorten it some. I have the heel of my hand against the saddle horn. If you don't know how to make a dally, I talked about that in another video. You don't want to lose any fingers. That's a good way to lose some fingers. See how that rope's a little bit high on his hip? I'll shorten it here in just a minute. It'll be at a better angle to go left. You notice how I turn, the board gets out to the side of us, and then we'll turn and we'll drag the board to us. That's a good way to add pressure. Right now there is pressure, the horse is pulling. Now I go this way, I've released pressure, there's slack in the rope. It also lets the horse see what he's doing, see that board out there, see the rope, and get really comfortable with it. When I'm working a horse dragging a log, personally, I like to train a horse with a pretty heavy log. This is, I think, an 8 or 10 foot 4x4. Generally, I like them to be this heavy or even heavier. See if we can get a little closer so I can shorten my rope. My experience is the horse learns how to pull better when you have a little bit heavier board instead of a light board. And also, get my loop right here. Also, when you have a heavier board, the horse learns to pull in and drag the weight. So not only is it easier for the horse to learn, the horse learns better. So now I got a little bit shorter rope. You want to make sure that it's not so short that the horse is going to step on the log. Now we should be able to turn left. Put a little bit of pressure of the rope against his hip. It should be low enough that it's not going to slide over his hip, but high enough that it's not going to get caught down in his legs. See if we can make a left circle now. And get a little bit of glimpse of the rope out of his left eye. So he has the pressure on his right hip and he can see it out of the left eye. Good boy. So we added pressure there. We're going to take the pressure away by going straight. Good boy. We'll go back to the left again. Go straight, take the pressure away. Turn. Go straight. Good boy. Now let's try something new. I have not tried pulling the log backwards yet. We'll see how that's going to go. Let's stop. Stop. Undo my dally. See if we can get turned so we can see the board. Since I get the board off to the side so often, this generally works okay. Some horses, when the board starts to kind of follow them, they worry a little bit. Some, it's not a big deal. So let's ask for a backup. Good boy. See, the rope's at a different angle here. Let's ask for another step. Good boy. As for another step. Good boy. They're feeding lunch in there and he hears it. That's what he's distracted by. I like that he's not concerned enough about this to think about something else. Think about feeding his stomach. That was pretty nice for the first time ever pulling backwards. I haven't pulled far. However, I've pulled backwards far enough that he saw it and I saw his response. So let's take the log back where it was. Give me some slack. Go put it back up. Just kind of follow this wall so I can get the board close. Whoa, whoa. And dally. Don't go nowhere. I really don't like how he finished. I'm not going to set the rope down. I was going to set it down. Let's go back around. Get him to stand against the wall where we wanted to stand. Whoa, there we go. Good boy. Now I'll throw the rope down. Good boy. So this is Trigger. I'll put a link here to some of the other videos that I've done on him. Until next time, thank you for watching.